All right, let's get right into it. Something huge is happening right now, something that's been a century in the making. We're talking about the collapse of what's been called Japan's invisible empire. And trust me, this is a story that's going to reshape the entire global financial order as we know it.
So I want you to picture this, a massive, massive dam. And for 100 years, it's been holding back this incredible amount of financial pressure. This isn't just any dam, it's basically controlled how money flows around the entire planet. But here's the thing, you're starting to see cracks. And when that dam finally breaks, oh boy, the flood is going to change, well, pretty much everything.
So let's talk about it. An empire is falling. We're looking at a really dramatic shift in Japan's economy. And this isn't just some local news story. Japan's economic system has been a cornerstone of the global economy for generations. And right now, it's unraveling. The fallout from this is going to be felt everywhere.
You see, for decades, Japan's economy has been playing by its own set of rules. It was this totally unique system that, honestly, seemed to defy gravity. But the game has changed. The conditions that let that system even exist, they're just gone. And that's a huge deal, because what's coming next could send shockwaves across the globe.
Okay, now look at this. It might just look like a couple of numbers, but don't let that fool you. This is a seismic event. This basically shows you the shift in how much it costs Japan's government to borrow money. For years, that cost was basically zero, sometimes even negative. Can you imagine? And now it's jumping. This is the financial version of a magnitude 9 earthquake. It's the sound of that dam we talked about cracking wide open.
So how did we get here? Well, this didn't just happen overnight. Not at all. This has been a slow-motion demolition, a century in the making, really. So to understand why it's all falling apart, we've got to go back. We need to see how this invisible empire was built in the first place.
In this timeline, it really tells the whole story, doesn't it? It's a story of ambition, sure, but also a lot of desperation. And at the end of the day, it was just unsustainable. You can see the seeds being planted way back in the 20s, how it got locked in after World War II, and then the lost decade hits. And by the 2010s, they're just throwing everything at it. It was an empire built on borrowed time. And guess what? Time's up.
So let's get a clear definition here. What are we even talking about when we say the invisible empire? Well, it's not an empire of armies and land. It was a financial empire, built on something as simple and powerful as interest rates. Japan basically kept its own borrowing costs near zero, and in doing so, they unleashed this massive flood of cheap money out into the world. It fueled everything. A silent conquest, an empire made of capital. And this whole thing, it really had two sides to it. At home, in Japan, it was all about defense. They were desperately fighting off deflation. That's when prices keep falling, which sounds good, but it's economically paralyzing. But on the world stage, a totally different story. It was an aggressive move that made Japan the world's biggest creditor, basically the world's banker. It was this incredible high-wire act, you know? And it was always going to fail.
Okay, so the dam held for 100 years. 100 years! The big question is, why now? What was the final straw? What finally pushed this whole system past the breaking point? Let's dive into that.
And here it is, the before and after. This really shows you the moment everything changed. The world that allowed Japan's empire to exist, it just vanished. You had low inflation and low interest rates everywhere, and then, boom! Suddenly, global inflation is soaring, and every other country is jacking up their interest rates to fight it. All of a sudden, Japan's zero-rate policy wasn't a clever strategy anymore. It was a ticking time bomb.
You know, there's that old saying, you can ignore reality for a long time, but you can't ignore it forever. Well, for Japan, reality came knocking, and it came in the form of a global economic storm that its financial empire just wasn't built to handle.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. Now for the big one. So what? What does this actually mean for the rest of the world, for us? How is the fall of this financial empire going to reshape your world? Let's break it down.
The ripple effects here could be absolutely massive. I mean, just try to imagine a tidal wave of money. We're talking trillions of dollars suddenly getting sucked back into Japan all at once. What does that do? Well, for one, it could make borrowing money more expensive for everyone, from the US government right down to you and me. It could send currency markets into a tailspin. We're talking about a fundamental rewriting of the rules of global money.
And if you're thinking, okay, but that's Japan, it doesn't really affect me, think again. Seriously. The interest rate on your mortgage, on your car loan, the value of your retirement savings, even just the basic stability of the economy, it's all connected to this single event. The collapse of this invisible empire could hit you right where it counts, in your wallet.
So here we are. We're standing at a real turning point in financial history. The old way of doing things is crumbling, and a new one hasn't been built yet. Which leaves us with a huge, huge question. As this invisible empire crumbles, who's going to come out on top in this new financial world? And who's going to get left behind? The answer to that question? Well, it's going to define the next century.